My name is Liz Griffith, and I'm from MadPow, along with my colleague here, Magga Dora. Magga Dora is a computer scientist with a bachelor's degree in psychology. She has been advocating for the user in software development teams since the turn of the century. She has also taught psychology and human factors to engineering and computer science students for over a decade. Today, she wants to address an important problem in all of our working lives: how to get rid of those pesky users. So please join me in welcoming Magga Dora.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really happy to see you. In my professional life, I have very often encountered pesky users, and even though now in my agency life, I'm not that close to the user anymore, I design and work with our clients to create things that keep those pesky users at bay. And I am assuming that since you're here, you have had some experience with pesky users yourselves. Just so that we are all on the same page about what I mean when I talk about pesky users, I'm talking about these users that are constantly contacting you or customer support because with weird requests, like they're asking for functionality that's actually there. They are asking for information that's right in front of their noses. They are confused, always at the same step in that process, and yet it's documented in the help and has been for months. Does that ring a bell with anybody? I see a little bit of nodding. Okay. So what I want to talk about today is that how can we, I want to shed a little bit of light on how we can approach these users and see how they are looking at our world and why they are constantly contacting us. And I wanted to talk about a few things that I'm hoping you can take away today and use immediately, so that you can nip in the bud of some of these problems before they even become any issues. Okay. Now, also before I continue, there are two ways that pesky users can disappear. Okay. First of all, they become so frustrated that they just stop using your product. They leave. Okay. And we've seen examples of this, and this is not the way that I'm advocating today. Okay. Even though this might help your current situation because you would get some peace and quiet to actually focus on what you want to be doing, creating the next version of what you're doing or the next big thing or whatnot, I'm pretty sure that in the long term it will be detrimental to your situation, because we need to remember that in one form or the other our users pay our salaries. Okay, so we don't want them to just leave. Okay. The other way that they can disappear is that they succeed. Okay, because a user that is successful is just too busy, going about his thing to spare you a second thought. Okay, and when they are just busy doing their thing, they are not contacting you or customer support to talk about stuff. They're just, doing what they need to do, and that's what I want to emphasize today. Okay, so in short, what I want to address is that I want to talk a little bit about what we know about users. I want to talk about how we can apply that in our jobs, and then how we can maintain a user-focused philosophy as we are creating our software. Okay? Now I know some of you may be sitting out there thinking, who is this woman standing here on stage telling me that she knows my users, I have particularly pesky users, and that she knows my product? And you're absolutely right, I know neither. But I've studied psychology, and this is psi, the letter psi, indicating psychology. And psychology has been studying humans for over 100 years. And psychology has uncovered some things about humans that we all share, and your users share as well. And if I tell you about them, then you will understand them better. So I want to take a few examples, and there are many more, that we could, that you could take away today. I want to talk about how people are predictable, because that's one of the most solid conclusions that psychology has shown over the past 100 years is that we are very predictable beings, okay? And and the best thing about that is that we're predictable in known ways, okay? So we can, before people can do stuff, we can actually predict how they're going to react to things and what they're going to do. And the things that I want to touch upon today are that people actually have a one-track mind, that we are working, sorry, something happened in the back. Am I 10 minutes in or 10 minutes left? 10 minutes left, okay. Okay, working memory, I want to talk about choice. I want to talk about how our limitations in memory have an effect on our choice and our decision making. And I want to talk about how we can affect people's behavior with subtle clues. And I want to talk about receiving support. And I want to challenge that, sorry. My clock says 3.5 minutes I've been up here. Okay, so. Thank you. Because otherwise I would have to plow through this and leave you with, wind in your hair. Okay. Sorry. So what do I mean by a one-track mind? What I mean is this. When the user accesses your software, he has one goal. There's one thing he wants to do. Okay. But when you design something, you have a holistic idea in mind, okay? And I'm taking a random example of this random airline, and I'm just showing you that they have designed this very nice front page on their website that shows all the functionality, everything that you can do on this particular website, okay? But when the user comes in, he's not reading meticulously through the website. And this may come as a shock to you, but a user is not reading every word that is laid down in front of them. What they're doing is they're scanning through in hunt of that thing that will bring them one step closer in finishing their goal. Okay, that's the only thing they're interested in. So when they find it, their focus is around that area, and if there's important information that they need to finish this task that they are there to solve, is outside of that area, it might as well not be there. This is why they're complaining that they don't see information that's right in front of their noses. Okay. An example here, okay. A couple of years back, I wanted to send a Valentine's to my husband, because I'm a hopeless romantic. Okay, and I used this Facebook app, because I'm so romantic, to get this message across to my husband, okay. So I go in here, I load it up, I select the design, and then I enter, who it is supposed to be addressed to. I write a message, and then I press continue. And an ad pops up, and I think, okay, it's an ad that I have to watch because I didn't pay anything for this Valentine's card, and then I don't think about it anymore. Except my husband never got the Valentine's. So I went back in here going, what's going on? Okay. My mind goes through this again. Next step, I choose my husband, okay, I wrote the message, blah, 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 and then continue. That didn't work, maybe it's broken. No, wait. There's a tiny little button here in the bottom left corner that says send card. That continue button is a part of an ad that's on the app. Okay, I never saw that send card button, and nobody would. And users are making mistakes like this every day in your website. And it's not because they're trying to be difficult or they're trying to break, find something that will break what you have done. It's because they're hardwired so. My focus point was to get through the form and then, of course, look for the next step. Okay. I'm not reading through the whole thing to find the button that has the send card on it. Does that make sense? Okay. Second thing I want to touch upon is memory. So we know people have one-track mind, but what I also want to talk about is how limited our mind is, and especially our memory. Working memory is that part of our memory that where we gather all the things that we are conscious of at any point in time, the things that we are using as we are working or as we are talking to somebody, okay? And this particular capacity is so volatile and so resource limited that it limits everything that we do. And for us, because we come from development and web development or software development, it may be a useful analogy to say that it in some ways is like a scrum wall, okay? On a scrum wall, you can only fit so many Post-its, and we all know what happens when somebody opens the window. Okay, things fall randomly to the floor. And that's exactly what happens when you are, working on something and then the phone rings. Or somebody interrupts you. Things fall randomly to the floor. So we can't expect our users to remember what they've done or where they've been, because that information may well be just gone. Okay, and what can we do about that? Well, we can tell them where we were. We can tell them what they've done. Because you know who are notoriously really good at remembering things? NSA, no, I mean computers. Computers are notoriously good at remembering things. So it can be just subtle clues, like showing me with the color of the links, where I've been, what I've clicked on before. Because we are much better at recognizing something than remembering it outright. Okay? Another way to do it in a complex flow where you have to select all sorts of things and many settings is to gather the settings all in one place and show it to me as I'm moving through. Okay, so that I know, what I've already done. Because, here's another shocker, when people are using our software, they're not dedicated to that. Life steps in. The phone may ring, they may need a bio break, what have you. So they're not only focusing on what we're presenting them. There are all sorts of things in their environment that is disturbing them. So we keep the thread so that they can pick it up again when they return. Okay. Now, because we have such limited working memory, we can only store in our working memory a few things at a time. And this is specifically important to choice. Okay, we can only keep in our heads maybe 3 or 4 choices at a time. What that means for us as developers is that we can't present to them an endless amount of choice. Because the paradox of choice is that the more choices you present, the worse decision our users are going to make. Okay. So it's our job to say, wait a minute, nobody is going to read through this and come to any sort of conclusion. Okay? And this is at the best case. 3 or 4 items we can keep in our mind in the best case. Think about the impact of stress or illness. It reduces this amount. Okay? So if you are writing software, for example, that's used in emergency rooms or, in safety critical situations, you also need to factor in, okay, these people are under stress. What can I do to relieve that stress instead of adding to the confusion? Okay. A simple example here. You would never throw your whole pricing strategy from the business plan in front of your users. You simplify it to a structure where they can understand. And very commonly, it is a 3-tiered thing. We have the basic option that basically says, this is for everybody could sign up. You have the maximum premium gold option, which is there to basically to say, okay, this is for people who, really mean it. But the function of it is to anchor the middle option, to make that look reasonable. Okay, this is a very common way to present 3 options. Okay. Now another way to limit options. Here's a young designer who really understands his user group and what his user needs and what his user is trying to do and what they don't need. Okay. He has a really good grasp of what it is that we should be doing. Okay, we have remotes like these, multiple in our homes. And every one of us has some time in commercial break taken a look at it and gone, what do all these buttons do? there are buttons on a remote we've never pressed. And the only reason they're there is because products are sold on features. Okay. The product with the most features gets, most promotion, gets best sales. And then, producers start competing. And in this pissing contest between producers, the user is lost. And the user goal is lost to some obscure feature that somebody thinks is a good idea to add to something. Okay. So I want to call on you today to make a choice. Next time somebody comes to you and wants to add just this one little thing, it might be the product owner, or it's another developer that has a great idea, or the designer who thought of something on the way to work this morning. Next time they come up to you, just give them the gentle pushback and say, that's a great idea. Let's put it on the backlog, and then next time we plan, you show me that there's real need. Okay. Because I know how, people gather around the developer station, because that's the easiest way to get anything into the product. It's just, hey, why don't you just, it's just a little tick box over there. But you're not only thinking about the user, you're also thinking about a simpler product, simpler coding, simpler maintenance, simpler testing. You know what I mean. Okay. So every choice we make impacts our user, and we need to then focus on making the choices that are most useful for our users, that benefit our users. And because there is if you think it's difficult to make a choice, any sort of decision is much more difficult than a choice. Okay, because a choice, at least you have it lined up. This is what you can do. But decisions where there aren't lined up choices are even more difficult to do. And what tends to happen is that because we find it difficult to make a choice, that we will avoid making a choice or making a decision, like the plague. Okay. And that means that the user is going with your choice, your decision. Okay. And this is a very common example, and it's very tiny on this screen. I was, of course, imagining I would be in a huge auditorium. There's a little tick box there that says, as you download your Flash player, you should also download the the McAfee virus application. Okay. And it's ticked. This decision has been made for me. And I'm likely just going to continue and download this application on top of my Flash application, even though I didn't mean to. Okay, right? Because stopping here and thinking about, do I need a virus application? Do I want this virus application, somebody else? What's already on my computer? What is my risk level here? This is stuff that I don't want to be thinking about now, because they're interrupting me in what I want to achieve. And note, what I want to achieve is not to download Flash. It's that I want to see something that somebody has implemented in Flash, right? So all of these are steps that are stopping me from getting to my goal. Okay, so I'm going to go with this decision, But so every time you make a decision for your user, you're thinking about, okay, is this benefiting the user? Or is it benefiting? This will look really good on download numbers for McAfee, right? But having somebody else make your decisions for you is a trust relationship. And if you break that trust, it's very difficult to build again. Okay. Here's another example, that the typical newsletter. You're doing something, and the newsletter thing is automatically checked off. And then all of a sudden your box is full of newsletters and you're going, where's this coming from? But in the case of this company, they're really fortunate because that would never happen. Okay. Because no user would press that bright red save button. Okay. Can you see why? Red indicates stop. No, don't do it. This is a bad idea. This is at best a backup to the previous step. And because we know the users aren't reading meticulously every word on the page, we're just scanning through to get to that button that will get them ahead, they're going to press that cancel button without a regret. And then they're just going to be really confused why they're not registered for this product. Make sense? So with subtle placements and coloring like this, we can directly influence the user behavior to do something. Just like Nick was talking about earlier, these little animations, they don't seem to have any effect, but they have an emotional effect on the user. There may be a better trust towards the particular website or particular app, and therefore a better participation. Another thing here, and it's a pet peeve of mine, is that the save button is also in the wrong placement. As we're moving down, as we're scanning through the page, we're aiming for that bottom right corner. That's our next step. Because here is an example of a button. You have no idea what the website does. Maybe you recognize it, but you don't. But there is a button there, and you kind of want to click it, because it's obviously the thing to do. Can you see it? What color is it? It's green. It's inviting. It's telling you, hey, over here. And before you know it, you started, a sign up for something. Really subtle. Okay. Now, I just want to end up talking about, help and support documentation. The example previously from with the red save button, that image is actually from help documentation. So obviously they had spotted there was a problem with the registration form. People were calling in saying, I thought I'd registered. And so they had identified there was a problem with it. So they added a chapter in the help documentation saying, in order to save, click the save button. Do you think that would help the situation? Anytime you're writing a help documentation, and I want to maintain that most of our applications don't need it. Anytime you find yourself writing, in order to search, click the search button, you've got a problem, and the problem is not solved by documenting it in the help. Okay. Documenting it in the help and then pushing it out of your, responsibility, that's copying out, in my opinion. Okay? Because there are many ways that we can support our users. And I want you to rather think of where can I support my user when he needs it, instead of putting it into a document that nobody ever reads. Third shocker, nobody reads the help. Okay. So I just want to leave you with this thought. I would like to invite you to think of your users like marathon runners. Every person that starts a marathon aims to finish. And every person that starts off using your software has a goal in mind that they aim to finish. But not all of them do. Okay. In a marathon, there is somebody that beforehand has recognized this and has made it their responsibility to think, how can I support these users, these runners, as they go through the course? And they're not there to make the course any easier or to offer shortcuts or anything. They're just saying, how about we place that water station on the top of that seemingly endless hill? Because we know that will help get people over it. How about we place some volunteers at that turn in the road, so when a half-conscious marathon runner is coming to the last mile towards the goal, they know to turn into Boylston Street. Okay. And you can do that too. Because armed with knowing what people do, because we know people are predictable, we can go through our software and think, okay, here is a spot where there is ambiguity, where there's somewhere where I can catch the user and hand them that glass of water. So when you're going through your software, you may be the product owner, you may be the developer, the tester, the designer, whatever. As you're clicking through, admiring your handiwork, just give yourself a moment and ask yourself, does my user know where he is, how he came to be here, and how he can proceed from here? Okay? And if you think there's any ambiguity here or anything that might be polished, then you're in a prime position to do it right there and then. Not wait for them to call you, at odd hours of the day to talk about, the problem. Does that make sense? Now, so what we've talked about in order to help the user get over that finish line is that we know we know lots of things about people. We can apply that in our work as designers and developers. And therefore, we can help our users be successful. And that's how you get rid of those pesky users. You make them successful. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, if you want to know more about this stuff, if you want to, if you have a design question about a choice that you need to make for your users, don't hesitate to reach out to anybody who has user or customer or experience or anything in their title. We love to help. We want to make users successful. Thank you so much for coming.